At 95 years old, Clint Eastwood no longer speaks to be liked. He speaks because time has stripped away the necessity for caution. Sitting far from Hollywood's noise, the great filmmaker finally addressed a name long linked with cultural division in the industry: Rob Reiner. His statements weren't aggressive or explosive. They were quiet, deliberate, and far more unnerving because of it. Why would a man known for silence choose now to speak, and what truth did he feel obligated to leave behind? Clint Eastwood Jr. was born on May 31, 1930 in San Francisco during the Great Depression. His youth was molded by continual migration as his family followed work around California. That nomadic childhood taught him how to adapt, how to observe, and how to endure without complaint. He grew into a quiet, thoughtful youngster, more content viewing the world than announcing himself to it. Music became his first sanctuary. Jazz and piano taught rhythm and restraint, lessons that would later characterize his cinematic style. After high school, Eastwood worked anywhere he could, as a lifeguard, a lumberjack, a gas station attendant. These were hardly glamorous years, but they anchored him. They taught him respect for effort and a deep awareness of ordinary struggle. Acting did not arrive as a goal fulfilled, but as an option explored after his discharge from the U.S. Army. Hollywood was not nice to him at first. Signed by Universal Pictures in the 1950s, Eastwood was swiftly sacked. Executives disliked his voice, his appearance, his lack of charisma. For many, that would have been the end. For Eastwood, it was fuel. He studied quietly, took tiny roles, and waited for something that enabled growth instead of compliance. That moment came in 1959 with the television series Rawhide. As Rowdy Yates, Eastwood earned recognition and stability, but he felt confined creatively, so he made a decision that impacted film history. Leaving American television behind, he headed to Italy to collaborate with filmmaker Sergio Leone. The risk was great. The reward was immortal. The Dollars trilogy introduced the man with no name, a character marked by silence, moral uncertainty, and a piercing glare. Eastwood transformed masculinity on screen, proving that power didn't need volume. The films changed the Western genre and established him into an international star. More significantly, they provided him control over his choices, his voice, and his independence. Returning to Hollywood, Eastwood became one of the most bankable stars of the 1970s. Dirty Harry made him a symbol of justice to some and dictatorship to others. Eastwood rejected both labels. He insisted his characters were questions, not solutions. That philosophy followed him behind the camera, where he created a directing style distinguished by restraint, faith in performers, and emotional honesty. With Unforgiven in 1992, Eastwood demolished the very myths that made him famous. The film earned him Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture, and heralded his metamorphosis into one of cinema's great storytellers. What followed was a remarkable sequence of pictures examining aging, remorse, violence, and redemption. His acclaim went global, honored by Europe, and praised by organizations that recognized not just accomplishment, but substance. But beneath the legacy lay a difficult personal life. Eastwood's marriage to Maggie Johnson began long before celebrity. She stood alongside him through rejection and uncertainty, keeping their children primarily away from Hollywood's glare. Fame brought distance, infidelity, and tension. Though they remained married for decades, their relationship bore the cost of ambition. When their divorce was formalized in 1984, it marked the end of a crucial chapter that formed Eastwood's concept of responsibility and consequence. As decades passed, Hollywood itself began to alter. Rob Reiner emerged not merely as a director, but as a prominent political voice. His activity became inseparable from his identity. While Reiner talked often and loudly, Eastwood remained reticent, choosing to let his work carry his convictions. The contrast grew sharper over time. When Eastwood was ultimately asked about Reiner, he did not attack. He appreciated Reiner's talent, his early films, and his understanding of character. But then came the pause. Eastwood warned of a shift in Hollywood, a trend away from curiosity towards certainty. He emphasized that certainty in art is harmful. Behind the celebrity, the truth was even worse. Eastwood emphasized that the split between himself and Reiner was not political, but intellectual. One wants to win arguments, the other wanted to ask inquiries. Eastwood felt Hollywood previously thrived on difference without antagonism, collaboration without uniformity. Now, he saw fear. Fear of speaking the wrong thing, fear of not aligning, fear that honesty can cost opportunities. He was careful to indicate he wasn't being silenced. His worry was for new filmmakers, artists frightened to be honest. Fear, he continued, has never generated excellent art. He did not accuse Reiner of establishing this society, merely of being comfortable inside it. And there, to Eastwood, was the real tragedy. At 95, there were no grievances left to settle. Eastwood talked without bitterness, understanding that his time to ponder was brief. He didn't want prizes remembered. He wanted freedom remembered, the freedom to tell stories that challenge rather than comfort, that unsettle rather than reassure. In the end, Clint Eastwood's truth about Rob Reiner wasn't a bombshell meant to shock. It was a lament, a quiet sorrow for an industry that once welcomed strangers and now polices its frontiers. Eastwood didn't only see Hollywood's transformation, he became its conscience. He didn't only live a remarkable life, he left behind a question. And if Hollywood is still daring enough to respond, it remains to be seen. What portion of Clint Eastwood's journey and his final truth resonated with you the longest?